What's good, everybody? RJ Sheldon here with another episode of the BD Boys. Got my good brother James Muenchow. How we doing, brother?
Oh, it's crappy weather, crappy time to be a sports. I think it's because the sports that are going on in Wisconsin, these results that are happening right now. Like I guess Mother Nature is just a Wisconsin sports fan because she's not happy either, man. So I mean, it's
Not at
raining, it's
all.
crappy, it's coldy, or it's cold, and it's a little bump in the road right now. But other than that, life is good. Can't complain. Had some good times over the weekends with you and got some
Absolutely.
golf in. It was nothing to complain about outside of the whole sports world. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
We are definitely going to get into it. Sad and unfortunate, Packers went and lost to the Lions 24-14. Jordan Love was 23 of 39 from the field, 273 yards throwing, one interception. Josh Jacobs had 13 carries for 95 yards. Jaden Reed continuing to be kind of that bell cow for them to make big plays from the wide receiver perspective. Had 5 receptions for 113. Looking at more guys that were doing some things as well, catching the ball. Really wasn't a lot besides Jaden Reed doing what he was doing with 113 yards. Watson had 3 receptions for 37. Tucker Kraft had 4 for 34. Romeo Dobbs had 4 for 28. All in all, man, we all know how this game went. If you did watch it as a Packer fan, you weren't pleased. This was ass kicking. Talk to me about it.
I mean, it was an ass kicking. It wasn't the embarrassment that the Lions usually put on in a game like this when they have that big momentum going into a half. You get a pick six like that, 24-3. We've seen that happen how many times? Well, not that exact thing, but Lions go into halftime, they come back out and they just go, "Hey, we're not done. You better get your straps on. We're not done here. We're gonna throw the trick plays at you. We're gonna blitz still. We're gonna put it on you. We're gonna make this put a 40 burger up, maybe a 50 burger, and absolutely embarrass you." That didn't happen. I think we can attribute that because of the weather. So I mean, it's tough to kind of run up the score if you can't drop some dimes and get a lot of big chunk plays with the weather that was going on. But
Right.
nonetheless, they were in control of the game. It never really felt like Green Bay was ever going to get back in it. They had that one little stretch in with like 8 minutes, 7 minutes to go where they were in at the 5 yard line with 4th and 1. That whole thing. I think Green Bay didn't. I mean, I think Tom Brady said it, and this is like one of the very few things Tom Brady said that I agreed with or listened to because he's still really shaky as an announcer. Like he's kind of hard to listen to. But really, what Tom Brady said was this game really has only been like 4 plays. If you think about it, I kind of agreed with that. Not trying to blow smoke up whatever this game was to try to make everything feel better, but the pick six happened. A lot of pre-snap penalties from Green Bay, a lot of penalties in general from Green Bay, a lot of red zone trips that ended in either field goals, missed field goals, or not touchdowns. Um, it was a little closer than I thought. I think people are blowing this up to be, but at the same time, Detroit had pretty good grasp of the game. Like it's just,
Right.
especially after that pick six. You maybe go, okay, you go into the half down 7, get a stop, and then you go down the field, maybe make it a one-score game, maybe make it 17-9 or 17-13, and we got a ball game on our hands. Well, the pick six basically just deflated everything out of that stadium, everything out of that whole situation scenario, and then it looked like Detroit just kind of coasted. They were like, let's just get out of this rain. Let's make sure everyone gets out of here healthy. We can't throw the big bombs anymore. We're not going to do chunk plays. The wind's blowing. It's raining. It was raining bad, too. Like, Jesus. They showed a shot of the lights with the rain coming down. I'm like, I'm glad I'm not there. I do
Same.
not want any part of that. So, dominated. We'll call it that. And they had control of the game. But, I mean, to the person who didn't watch the game, they'll look at the score and be like, oh, 10-point game. Pretty good. The defense held the Lions scoreless for the whole second half. You You had some really good bright spots with the offensive running game. I think they were average 7 yards of rush. Now, again, was that because the second half the Lions were kind of playing a little bit more conservative, just to keep things in front of them, even though I don't think that was even remotely possible to throw the ball down very, very far down the field with that wind. But you got to take some bright spots. That's what you got to do. So 7.5 yards of rush. Josh Jacob looked really good. I think the offensive line played really well. I think that the one thing I took away, that line combination. Now, Josh Myers, the center, was out. Josh Myers is damn near the worst center in the league, statistically, per PFF. So they bumped Elton Jenkins inside to center. That's his natural position out of college, but Elton Jenkins then proved I can literally play anywhere you want me to, and I could do it at a high level. So I think he covered whatever. All right, let's just build a line, and then whatever our weakest spot in, guess what? You're going to play there. And that would be left guard. So then he moves inside to center, and then Sean Ryan, who played the right guard, got kicked to left. And then the rookie who came back, it was their first round draft pick, played right guard. Interior offensive line, and if you've been listening for the past couple of weeks, has been a problem. It wasn't that much of a problem this week. Now, Detroit doesn't have many big run stoppers, like mainstay run stopper, but it still just looked a lot better. They were getting a push. I don't know how many sacks, how many times Jordan Love got sacked, but the problem, the penalties and stalling inside the red zone. You can't stall inside the red zone. You can't take field goals in the NFL. You got to win today, or you got to punch it in and get touchdowns. So that really was my key thing. From a defensive perspective, I mean, this game was kind of blank too. I mean, it's a rain game. It was kind of boring, and
Right.
both teams are trying to find ways to move the ball that isn't running it in a gusty wind and rain. Defensively, you got nothing from your pass rush. Goff was still like 18 of 23, very productive. Proving that the team that hasn't played an outdoor game can play outdoors. So that was kind of a statement for the Detroit Lions. If it doesn't matter, I think they're going to run away and get this 1 seed. I think that you just saw the best team in football. By a far margin, I don't know, but by a margin, like they're on a level. They're on a different level than a lot of other teams. I think there's maybe 2 teams that can be put in that level in the NFL. And so Detroit made a good statement saying it doesn't matter where we're playing. We're going to be competitive. We're going to do our thing. And we're going to do what we usually do, which is win. So another concern was Jordan Love's interception. You didn't need to do that at the end of the half. Take a sack, throw it away, take an intentional grounding, do literally anything you didn't do, because then at worst you go into the half 17-3. That was a pick where he's only had 2 of those types of picks, which is 2 more than I want him to do. It was the one in LA that just was absolutely god awful, and this was another one.
Right.
Does that worry me? No, it doesn't worry me. It gets a little worrisome. He's an aggressive thrower. He's not a reckless thrower. Favre was the same way. People say, well, he was aggressive. Yeah, he was. And that was something like Favre did. But he was also aggressive, which won him 2 MVPs in a Super Bowl. So, I mean, it's an aggressive play style. He takes his chances, and most of the time he's won. Now he's coming out on the other end where he's not coming out and winning. I think I'm surprised they played him the entire second half. They were in the game, and I kind of felt like they're trying to prove that he was healthy enough to play, because if you pull him after that half at 24-3, then that's where we sit here on this show and say, hey, they shouldn't have played him to begin with. And it kind of felt a little like that, but he was still productive. I mean, he still made some throws. He had drops, which he could have thrown for 300 yards and probably even more touchdowns if they caught the damn ball. Some of those throws, yes, it was like, well, it was a little behind him. NFL, dude, you're an NFL wide receiver. You got to catch anything that comes within here, there,
Radius.
wherever. Yes. So bad drops on very opportunistic plays too. It wasn't just like a first down. It was like a lot of them were third downs, and one of them was in the end zone. So I think this was one of their worst games of the year, and we came off the Jacksonville game saying that I think that was one of their worst games of the year. That was by far one of their worst games of the year. They're second in the league in pre-snap penalties. They're top 3, I think, in penalties overall. So I think this bye week that's coming up is the perfect time. Give everyone a mental rest. Get everyone a physical rest. Let's reset. Let's come back. We got a big one in Chicago coming up here. Let's get right. Let's do some self-assessment like we always every team does in the bye weeks. I mean, they're doing it every week, but let's do a big self-assessment and let's hit this second half of the season hard. They got a tough schedule. They don't really have any lollipops left.
Right.
They got rid of all the lollipops already, and they beat the lollipops, which are good. But it came at a good time. They're playing really sloppy football for the past 2-3 weeks. And so I think this bye week came at a good time, where you can really flush this loss. And I hope they came out of that game thinking they could win the game, because, I mean, they could have. They easily could have. I mean, that first drive, they just went down the field. I was like, oh, here we go. And then they kicked the field goal. I'm like, okay. And Detroit went down and scored. I'm like, well, Detroit. And then it just kind of spiraled from there. So the really scary thing is that this team is 6-3 and they're playing not really good football. Like, with all the sloppy play, the bad offensive line play, the drops, the pre-snap, all the penalties that they commit. I am very optimistic for this team, because if they start cleaning that up and then they start getting other guys to contribute, and because their big boys aren't even playing yet, as in guys like Rashawn Gary are not contributing like he should be contributing, or they're being paid to contribute. Kenny Clark, same thing. They're getting a lot of help from offensively. Jaden Reed and Romeo Dobbs are contributing. Tucker Kraft is contributing. Josh Jacobs is rushing yards contributing, not for touchdowns, but rushing yards. He's top 3 in the NFL, maybe even top 2 in the NFL in rushing yards. Offensively, I'm not worried. Defensively, you got to get healthy. You got to get Jair Alexander back. This is the point of the year where it's like, oh, Jair's going to be out for a month. Here we go. So hopefully it was a precautionary thing on Sunday, to the point where if it was a playoff game, he would have played. But if for him to have that extra week of rest, I'm okay, because I think this is a playoff team. NFC's tight. 6-3 right now is a 6 seed, which is scary. But I still think as the season goes on, it's going to start to get wider, and the good teams are going to start to identify themselves. I still think this is a playoff team. I just want them healthy. Get healthy, get into the playoffs healthy, and then let the playoff magic just start. The magic of win or go home, any given Sunday takes over, and I think Green Bay playing any given Sunday is pretty good. With the team they have is pretty good. So I think this bye came at a good time. I'm very optimistic for the second half of the season. Very tough schedule. Unfortunately, you are 0-2 in the division. I think the division is not completely lost yet, but it's very, very close to being lost. Because again, I think Detroit hasn't even played a lot of lollipop AFC South teams yet. And those spreads are going to be huge. They're going to put 40, 35 points on the board for them. So I think it is narrowly to the point where the division is going to be lost. Unless, and again, we've seen it before, Detroit just all of a sudden hits a skid. They lose 2 games and Green Bay wins 2 games, we're right back in it. But then you have that NFC North tiebreaker, which hurts you. But Green Bay's got 3 more games in the division. You get to meet everybody once again. If you go 3-3, you have a shot. Because, again, Detroit last year went into Chicago, a bad football team in Chicago, and then Chicago just shocked them and put up 38 points, whatever it was. I remember you and I talking about that game, and we were like, holy crap, Detroit just got beat by Chicago. So anything can happen. They still got to go play Minnesota as well, or Minnesota has to go play them. Anything's happened, but I still think Detroit is just going to start running away with it a little bit, and Green Bay doesn't have those easy opponents like Detroit does. So I think the division's almost lost. But a lot of stuff to be optimistic about. Defense, but again, defensively, your big boys got to start showing up. Rashawn Gary, Quay Walker's got to start playing better. You can't rely on guys like Eric Wilson, even though he's playing great and is fantastic. You can't rely on Eric Wilson and Endrick Cooper to be the guys that carry that load. Lucas Van Ness is another one, and now whatever his name is, his last name is Cox, and Big B or a 7th rounder and an undrafted free agent for defensive ends. You can't expect them to be carrying the load. Carrington Valentine can't be expected to carry the load. Keyshawn Nixon's got to start stepping up and playing some type of ball. Hopefully you get Evan Williams back and get healthy because he is just so dynamic along with McKinney. And Javon Bullard, you just keep playing like you plan. So lots to be optimistic about, but also lots to clean up. But I think this is still a playoff team. And I think they're not going to walk in, but I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they'll be a 5 or 6 seed because, again, I think the division is damn near lost.
No, I feel that. I think the big thing, and you've already mentioned it, is just to make sure we get healthy to go ahead and be where we are right now. I think the way we've played could have been better, could have been worse, but it's always good to be on the hindsight of being 6-3. And I think right now, the only thing that I'm worried about, I'm just worried about Jordan Love. That's the only thing I'm worried about, and we're going to know when we go ahead and he plays against, obviously, the Bears. Hopefully he goes ahead and assess his play and looks what he's doing from just reads, from making, okay, I am throwing this maybe a little bit too aggressive here. Or I'm not kind of thinking game plan, or I'm not thinking critical game situations when it comes to second quarter going to a half, or throwing it in between two guys when we're already up or have an opportunity to get to the next play and just run the ball maybe. You don't have to be the hero every play. Take checkdowns. Make sure you go ahead and do things that can help you out, because if you try to get so cute with things, that's how we lose ball games. And that's exactly how we lost this game.
I was literally just going to say that. It feels like, and it's always felt like this, even when Aaron Rodgers was with Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur overthinks himself a little bit too much. When you're rushing for 7.5 yards a carry, and it's 2nd and 1, sure, inside the 5, sure, taking a shot at the end zone on 2nd down. I'm okay with it. But it's 3rd and 1. If you're planning on going for it on 4th down, just run it. And then if you lose 2 yards, if you lose 2 yards, you're going for it on 4th down anyway. But just get your goddamn yard, and then you get a fresh set of downs, and then you take your shots at the end zone. They shouldn't have gotten stuffed on. And then, it's 4th and 1. We just threw the ball times. I don't know what the first down play was, but they got to 2nd and 1. What do you think they're going to do now? They just threw the ball twice to the end zone. They need a yard. And it showed. Detroit was ready for that running play. It was really frustrating. He overthinks it. If something's working, and this is what happens. Matt LaFleur is all about balance, which really is good in that offense when you want to do the play action, when you want to play off play action. But then he loses if something's working. Like I used to fight with people and argue with people who are like, just run the ball, just run the ball. When Devontae and Aaron Rodgers are just absolutely carving up defenses. You're throwing the ball and you're having very good success with it. Stick with it. Run it till they stop it. Why do we need to run the ball just to run the ball? So, running the ball worked. Why are we stopping running the football? Just keep, especially on a 1 yard. If you're running the football well and you have 1 yard to go, just take the damn yard and start over. Stay ahead of the sticks. So it's really frustrating. That's what I was going to say. It seems like he overthinks himself a lot, and that's been the case ever since Aaron Rodgers was here and his first year, and he just tries to get too cute. So it's quite the thing. So it's very frustrating to watch. But
No, it is.
you hit it spot on. I agree with that 100%, and I was thinking that too. Where I've said it a couple times, like, why are we getting so cute? Why are we
Right.
running jet sweeps on 3rd and 1, north and south? So
Yes.
it's frustrating, but again, that's just kind of, sometimes it's nitpicky, but sometimes it's just like, damn it, just do what is working right now. So, but yeah, hopefully they self-assess and they just start getting back to what they were. I think also Jordan Love's getting a little bit of an unrealistic. I think we're forgetting he's in his second year of actually starting. I know he went on that hot streak last year. I think people got an unrealistic expectation of him doing that every year. So I think maybe we as Packer fans need to just dial it back a little bit. He's Aaron. So we had the two polar opposites of quarterback for the past 30 years. We had Favre, who was not very conservative with the football, that took chances where it didn't work out a lot, but sometimes it did, and it was great to watch. It was fun to watch. And then it was Aaron Rodgers, who didn't like turning the football over, who didn't really take a lot of chances with the football unless it was there, didn't throw a lot of interceptions, and then there was times where it's like, Jesus, he's throwing like 35 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. It's a pro and con thing, and Jordan Love, I think, is a little bit more aggressive, and with the more aggressive play that wasn't Aaron Rodgers, it's going to come out with more interceptions. But with more aggressive play, you're going to be on the other side of that coin as well too, where holy shit, it worked. And so we got to dial it back just a little bit. I think me as well got a little bit ahead of ourselves, where I'm like, dude, he's going to be 40 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. No, that was unrealistic. That's unrealistic to think that he's not going to throw any interceptions. It's the NFL. God's sakes, teams are going to take it away. There's a bunch of great athletes all over the field, and he's still in his second year. So I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit. He's still in his second year. He's going to make mistakes. We're all human. The game's fast in the NFL. So maybe we just had a little bit of unrealistic expectations. But a lot of stuff to clean up here. Just got to stop making those stupid mistakes. The aggressive mistakes is one thing. The stupid ones, no, we don't want that.
Well, at the same time, it needs to be smart football. And if you want my honest opinion, he's not playing smart football.
No.
I mean, the aggression, I get it, and him making throws, but it's more of him trusting his guys, which he should, but the boneheaded plays on top of that makes it even worse.
Yes.
And that's the problem that I'm having right now with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care if he did way better. Like, that's the expectation of you being a quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. You know all the guys that were before you. You know the expectation, and you know not to turn the football over. Because if you don't turn the football over, we're looking at to be 7-1, 6-2. We are looking at to be just where the Detroit Lions are. So he needs to have a big evaluation, especially this off
and why are the Lions 7-1? They don't
because
turn
their
the
quarterback's
football
not turning the ball over. Because he has turned a game changer, like my boy Lip says, a game changer into a playmaking game changer. He controls the game and never goes ahead and makes any type of mistake. And that's what Jordan Love needs to do, and he's not doing that. No, he hasn't done that since week 1. He needs to go ahead and really figure it out. Because if he plays like this, we got Bears, 49ers, Dolphins, Lions there, Seahawks there, Saints coming in, Vikings, Bears.
I'll be at that one.
He better not go ahead and throw any interceptions any of those other games. And I don't care, human players don't matter. You at the quarterback position, especially how valuable that position is for your team to have success in the postseason, there better not be a damn interception on that report every time you get done with them stats when you're done with this game. But it's going to be a big bye week for them. Get right. Everyone's got to evaluate, even coaches, everybody.
Oh yeah.
Then moving on to the news here, Preston Smith had left. We had traded him over to the Steelers for a 7th-round pick. From a front office standpoint, I think that was a good idea. Preston Smith, first of all, never would ever bash you. You did a lot for the Green Bay Packers for your time being. Appreciate you a ton, my good brother. But business is business, and I hope you do well with the Steelers. Talk to me about this trade that they went ahead and did for the
So,
Packers, going and making that
well,
trade for Preston Smith.
so I saw this and I was really happy to see it. Not because I'm a Preston Smith hater or anything like that. I just think it was time. Um, it's time to let the younger guys get more snaps. Um, Preston Smith had 3 more years on his deal. Why does this make sense? Let's talk about why this deal makes sense and if you don't think it makes sense. So if you don't think it makes sense, the reason why is because Preston Smith, and I heard this stat and I damn near fell out of my seat. For the position he plays in, I think this is his 10th year in the league. He's missed 1 game. For a guy to play at that position to miss 1 game in your entire career, that's stability. He's always going to play. So that's why it doesn't make sense. Okay, this guy plays all the time. He had 2.5 sacks. I think I heard he's 6th all time in Packers sacks, which a lot of that was the first 3 years he was here, 3 to 4 years when the Smith brothers were in full effect. I think he had 44 sacks. Not in his first 3 years, but as a Packer, I think he had 44 sacks. He has 2.5 sacks this year, and your weakest position on the defense, besides corner, is defensive end, if you look at it. So that's why some people say it doesn't make sense. Here's why it makes sense. This is 10th year in the league. He's 30. Oh, here we go with age again. 33, 34 years old. He's had some really interesting years where all of a sudden that 1 year he
31.
came in. Damn. He came into the league and he
was also 6th. He was 6th all time for the Green Bay.
Oh, I got it. Let's go. He came into 1 year and he was just really super overweight, and it took him like damn near over half the season to get in shape. So there was that problem. The other problem is they extended him after his first initial 4-year deal for a good amount of money because he did have a lot of key moments. But then the Joe Barry thing started coming into effect. Like he first started off with Mike Pettin. It worked a little bit. It was kind of like Joe Barry and Mike Pettin were the same thing, but they got a lot of sacks with Mike Pettin, and then the first year or two with Joe Barry got a lot of sacks, and then it started getting weird where all of a sudden he'd be out there and Joe Barry would get caught with his pants down, and Preston Smith would have to go fucking cover Justin Jefferson, and it was stupid, and all of a sudden he'd be out the number 1 corner on the outside. And it's like, what is we doing? So I think he got a little bit of a bad rap past 2 years because he was at the helm of a really bad system. So It made him look bad. And, we roasted it. If you're trying to cover Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, those are, yes, he actually did. There's picture evidence of it because he just got caught in a bad, they caught him in a bad system or caught him in a bad personnel. It just was bad, and it made him look bad. But then he was still around 8 sacks a year, and then age is going to settle in, especially when you play every single game, which is great. But and then the main thing for me. So this deal will save Green Bay this year, for the rest of the year, around $2 to $3 million. Okay, not that much. Next year, it'll save Green Bay $7.5 million. Pretty good amount. The year after that, it will save Green Bay $18.5 million. That is a lot of money to be paying a guy in 2 to 3 years, a 33, 34-year-old. And then the year after that, yes, he had one more year, saved about $1.5 million. So this team wants to get younger, and it's been evident of that. They have handed the room over to Rashawn. Not that I think Rashawn was the head of that room anyway, but a vet presence was always nice. Another vet presence was always nice to help these younger guys out. The Steelers came calling to get rid of that big contract for only a 7th-round pick. Or Steelers were only offering a 7th-round pick. To save all that money to only get a 7th-round pick, I think is perfectly fine. Because I think he's going to get cut. After maybe they'll pay him next year the 7.5, and then the year after that he's going to get cut. Like no one's paying him $18.5 million, or he's going to have to restructure something. So I think the pros, the cons, and then the cons was still depth. Now Lucas Van Ness is going to get more snaps. JJ Enagbare is going to get more snaps, and then they're going to bring up the other two guys who I mentioned. The first one's last name's Cock. The other one's name starts with a B, which actually that guy had a half a sack this past weekend. The only sack that they had on Jared Goff, he was half of it. So we're going to start seeing a little bit more of a youth movement, young, healthier edge rushers deeper in the season help because offensive linemen play every down. So they're going to get wear down after 18-game season. Start getting younger bodies in there who are fresh. Maybe that turns a corner. I'm not sure. But Aaron Mosby and
Mosby. Yeah, Aaron Mosby. Excuse me, Mosby.
And yep. Mosby had a really good preseason. Like I think he had a strip sack in the last game against Baltimore, and I think he may have even returned it for a touchdown. But either way, he had a really good preseason. He made the 53. I think him and Cox were like the last two on the 53. But you're going to see those guys get a little bit more production. Lucas Van Ness, JJ Enagbare is going to see a lot more snaps. Not production, but snaps. So the Preston Smith trade is pretty big. It alters some things. But financially, I think it was a great move. And I think down the line, getting rid of that 18 and $7.5 million, maybe you can bring in some more guys. Like maybe you can bring in another pass rusher, like maybe like a Chase Young or a Javion Clowney for the next year if they're free agents. You never know. Like a vet pass rusher who's looking for like a championship ring seeker, possibly have room because you got rid of Preston to do something like that. But we'll see. That's next year's problem. They didn't make any other moves, which if anyone thought they were trading for Myles Garrett, I even heard Marshawn Lattimore's name come up, which I was like, that's absolutely not happening. There's another corner from Cleveland. I'm like, they're not going to make that move, which unfortunately is because they love to chase the unknown. Like they love to maybe already in the 4th round. A guy like draft this guy in the 4th round and hope he becomes David Bakhtiari. Draft this guy in the 4th round to become Evan Williams. Draft this guy in the 3rd round to become Tucker Kraft. 3rd round to become Jaden Reed. They love their draft picks. The 5th rounders, even the 6th rounders, they love those picks and they love to try to take more bites at the apple. That's not their phrase. That's the Milwaukee Brewer phrase, but we're just going to use it universally. They love those bites of the apple. So I knew for a fact, unless it was a what the hell is this team thinking type deal for this cheap, it wasn't going to happen. Like that, any people are sending me, like I talked to a couple other people, they're sending me, they have interest in Myles Garrett. No, they're not going to do that. That is just not going to happen because that's how they operate. Would it make sense? Sure. It makes sense for any team. It's not going to happen. Like Nick Saban is not happening. So quit asking about it. That's the Packers. They sell. They don't buy. Their biggest buy is going to be a Brandon McManus to help the kicking well. That's what they do. They don't do any type of splash. They're not going to go get DeAndre Hopkins. They're not going to trade like Buffalo did for Rasul Douglas last year. They're not going to trade a 3rd round pick. It's not going to happen. So quit asking.
No, I feel you. But yeah, no, bye week, so we can go ahead and take a little break from the good old Packers. They need it. We need it. Moving on over to the Badgers, went ahead and got dog walked against Iowa, 42-10. I really don't even need to go through that. I mean, it just was an ass whooping. You got anything you want to talk about on that, or you want to continue?
No, I don't think we really need to talk about it at all, except now they get into a really tough schedule.
Yep.
They got, here we go again. Not this weekend, but in 2 weeks, they got Oregon coming in. That's going to be a 6:30 nationally televised game. So everybody in the world gets to watch once again. Wisconsin get their. The Penn State game wasn't that bad. Oregon's just going to come in and they're just going to go this way and then that way and then this way again and probably that way one more time. It's going to be ugly. Like Oregon's
Better be cold for them.
It is, but Oregon's
You better be cold. That's all I got to say.
That heads need to roll. Needs to roll. Anyone who says Luke Fickell needs to get out, it really is the coordinator. It's not the defense. The defensive coordinator can do so much when your offense can only give you 10 points. What do you want? Mark Tressel's sitting there like, bro, you want to like help? Like I'm getting my ass kicked over here, and you're just trying to run this. I understand why Wisconsin tried it. This is the modern day college football. They can't do it though. They don't.
Right.
They're not going to get the 5-star speedsters. They're not going to get the dual threat. I mean, if Tyler Van Dyke was in this system, it might be a little better. Like he may have won you one more game. Maybe made the Penn State game a little bit more competitive. Maybe made the Iowa game a little bit like something happened earlier in the game to help the momentum. Something. Braden Locke looks like he's regressed. He looks like he was starting to get comfortable in the offense. Now he looks like last year when he looked really bad. So I understand why they did it. You adapt or die, but you can't. It's not Wisconsin football. I understand NIL. You're not going to get the big 300-pound messiahs from little town Wisconsin who pull the freaking, the farm boys that tackle calves since they've been 9. Those kids, you're not going to get those kids for free anymore because NIL has come in and changed that. But it's still hometown Wisconsin. You're still going to get them. You're just not going to get the abundance like you did. You got to go back to some type, and I don't care if you run a pistol, so you can still run that spread if you really want to kind of spread it out. They're not going to get the wide receiver athletes. You got to go back to, we're going to line up under center. We're going to run a pro-style offense. We're going to get 5 300-pound dudes in front of you, and we're going to crack fools up north and south to the point where they just go, can you please just throw the ball once, please? Like, I'm dying here. The defensive tackles and linebackers, bro, you got 285-pound fullbacks running at me every single play. Can you please just let up, please? That's what they need to get back to be competitive. Defensively, they're fine. I think what they're doing on the defensive end has been Wisconsin football for the past 7 years. Tough. You're flying around. I don't think anything needs to change there. But offensively, I understand you want to keep up with the times. But sometimes, especially in college football, when everybody just cares about speed, football has a way of reverting back to itself. So revert back to it, control the clock, minimize mistakes, wear teams down. When it gets 40 degrees and raining in Camp Randall against Oregon at 6:30 at night, and then Oregon's just like, can we please go back home? I don't want to play in this. And all of a sudden, you got 5 300-pounders and a 260 to 285-pound fullback meet you in the A gap every 3 out of the 12 plays that you run. It's going to wear teams down. You're going to upset some teams, and you're going to compete. And they're not doing that. I understand they tried. They're not going to get the playmakers that you need to run that type of offense. They need to change something, and it's starting with Phil Luongo. You have to change. Like, I understand it, but it's not working. This is evidence. This is year 2, and now you're like mid. You're beating Northwestern. You're beating the bad of the Big Ten. But now we need to start competing with the Penn States, the Oregons, the Ohio States, I guess Iowa. I mean, you need to start competing with those teams, and they're not. And if they don't change, they're going to find themselves in the basement again. And Luke Fickell is going to go to another program and probably make that one great, because I think he is a good coach. I just think this idea he had wasn't the right one. He tried, it didn't work. Now you need to do something to save your job, because if you keep this up, you're going to lose your job by next year.
That's tough to hear, because he is a good dude and he has good purpose of coaching and what he's trying to do to get those young guys together. Badgers right now 5-4. They are on a bye, and then they got number 1 Oregon coming in, so that should be interesting. Moving on from that, Bucks talk here. They went ahead and lost to the Cavaliers 114-116.
Twice.
Excuse me.
They lost.
Yeah, they lost to them twice. Yep. Both of them basically a track meet. Giannis didn't play, I think, both those games, or maybe one of them.
Yesterday's game.
Boy, oh boy. Yesterday. Boy, oh boy. I don't know really what else to say. I've talked about it. We've talked about it. I mean, I'm just going to keep this short and sweet here. 15th in the East. I think everyone in Wisconsin knows what the problems are. We got to get it figured out when it gets to about game 15 or 20. If we don't have that, holy shit, it's going to be downhill very, very quickly. So you want to hint on anything like that, or what do you want to go and talk about?
That game, it actually looked pretty good. Dame looked like Dame. Like he took that, so that's promising to see. AJ Green scored 20-something off the bench. That guy needs to play over Pat Connaughton. I don't care. He's younger. He's shooting better, and Pat Connaughton is 6'5". The AJ Green is 6'4". You're not giving anything up in height. Maybe Pat Connaughton is a little bit more defensively, just the hair. I don't care. You're not going to stop anybody defensively. I want the guy who's hucking up threes and making them, instead of Pat Connaughton, who's probably shooting less than 20%. Bobby Portis had a double-double, a pretty big double-double. He had like 20-something and 18. But then it just comes back down to, and you might be like, James, you're nitpicking. I don't care. Like, this is what you run into. They had the ball, and they were down 2. What do? They inbound the ball from their half, and Bobby turns his back to Bobby, and he turns his back to the basket. No. Dame is over here. He's like the top 70. He's in the top 75 players of all time. He's hot tonight. He's got 36. Move the ball. They don't move the basketball, which is problem number 1. They play so much isolation basketball, which I'm okay with Dame and Giannis doing that. I am not okay with Bobby Portis doing that. Sometimes I'm okay with Brook Lopez doing it if he's 5 feet away from the basket with his big 7'1" ass backing people down. Maybe, just to change the pace. Not moving the basketball from what a lot of people I've heard who played the game of basketball, because Jimmer don't know ball, Jimmer don't play no ball, he just watches. The not moving the basketball could be the death of an offense. Giannis and Dame, fine. Those are elite players. Bobby Portis, you are not elite. Know your damn role. Pass the ball. So he had a really good game and then threw it all away the last half of the fourth quarter. So, silver lining, he played really well. Trade him. Look, he's playing really well, everybody. Get him out of here. Get his buys now. Like, get him out of here. Pat Connaughton, maybe throw him in for another dog. I don't care. AJ Green needs to be playing. Andrew Jackson Jr. had a really good game. I think he had like 10 points. Gary Trent Jr. continues to be a liability on defense when he's supposed to be the defensive guard guy. He's not. He's a liability. He was absolutely horrid last night. Maybe it's because he has the job of defending the number one guard on the team. Okay, but you're not doing it well. So let's change that. Torrin Prince kind of came down from earth from game one. It is what it is. The team will change if Chris Middleton plays there, but he's only not going to play 40 games. It may be too little, too late by the time he does come back and play. I still haven't heard a timetable. When they say he's close, but how close is close? I don't know. So,
Right.
It looked good. Like last night without Giannis, it seems like when Giannis and Dame, it's really weird. I might be wrong on this, but it looks like Giannis and Dame play better without each other than they do with each other because they're just so used to that, which is fine. But then when they play together against Boston, they had 30 and 30. They both scored over 30 points. Perfect. But then there's some nights where it's like, okay, Giannis scored 20, Dame scored 7. Or Giannis scored 30, Dame scored 7. Dame scored 25, 28, Giannis scored 14. So, I mean, who knows? They still might be working out kinks. I mean, I know they had a full season together, but you don't practice a lot in the NBA. They worked out together. It looks like it's gelling a little bit more. But this team needs changes, and now it's becoming a results-driven thing. If you go 2-12, yes, I'll say 2-12, maybe we get a win. I don't know. But if you're 2-12, heads need to roll. Again, just like Badger football, heads need to roll. It needs to be Doc Rivers because he's a joke. Like, he's just flat out a joke. He's really bad. You shouldn't have fired Bud. You shouldn't have hired Adrian Griffin. There is one guy out there where if they do roll Doc's head, I know everyone's saying Darvin Ham, which is probably going to be the guy. But if it isn't him, I don't know if he got a buyout from last year, but Monty Williams is there. And I think a lot of players around the league respect him because he took that Phoenix team that the Bucks beat to the finals. And then I think with all those personalities that came into Phoenix with Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, all those personalities, I think it just kind of lost its head. And he kind of just lost control from the player power that the NBA players get. So then he went to the Pistons, which anybody's for a bag. Oh my God, when they paid him all that money, and then after 1 year, they're just like, take like most of it and please leave us. Okay, what time do you want me to leave, and when do you want me to go? Okay, so Monty Williams is out there. He'd be my second choice, but if Doc's head does roll, it's probably going to be Darvin Ham, which is fine by me. A lot of players on that team respect Darvin Ham, but hopefully he doesn't have too much relationship with them to where he doesn't trade like a Bobby Portis or a Pat Connaughton because of the history that he's been through with them. So we'll see. Hopefully it gets better, but I don't see it as long as Doc Rivers is the head coach. But they're not out of it yet. I saw a stat out of 150 teams in NBA history that have started off 1-6. 12 of them have made the playoffs, but there's 75 games left. There's a lot of season left. You can run 10 in a row. You can run 5 in a row here, 7 in a row here. It can happen. So are we in panic mode? No, but we know where the problems are and we need to fix it and fix it fast before we get to 2-12, 3-15, 4-20. It could happen because the way it looks right now, it is not good.
Not good at all. I mean, you hit on the head. Doc Rivers has got to go. I mean, prime example is if it's crunch time in the fourth quarter, why do we not have the all-star that we have on our team with the ball in his hand? And he has 37.
I think that's a Bobby Portis thing, though.
I don't even think that's a Bobby. It is a Bobby Portis thing, but at the same time, like that is where if I'm a coach and I have my best player and he's hot the way he is, I am telling you, hey, listen, we are running the offense through Dame, but that's the problem. We don't have coaching that goes ahead and has some type of game plan when those situations go ahead and appear. Because it's clear throughout these whole games, he don't know what the hell he's doing.
No.
He don't know what to do with anything with the Bucks, and it was clearly evident last year. so
Yep.
much ISO ball. There's no fluid mode. Like it's even worse. Like NBA people are like, yeah, they don't play any offense or defense. Like if you really want to see a shitty offense, just watch the Bucks. Like if you
It's
if you want to see an offense that is
yeah,
so ISO ball, it's insane. Just watch
yeah,
the Bucks.
yeah. It's bad. You're right about that. Where I think it's a Bobby thing where it possibly could
I mean, yeah,
when you're
it can be. Yeah, it's him as
you're
well. Like
but your thing about coaching is so realist is so real. It's stupid. Like how stupid it is when players are coming out. We don't have an identity. We don't know how we're gonna win games, bro. You just had like 2 months training camp with this coach finally, and you still don't know what the hell you're doing. Like that is an indictment on how bad the coaching is. So you're right. Don't get me wrong. Like you're right, but it's so bad that's the case. For you to
and
be
it's
right about how bad the offense is, indictment on how bad it is there. And
it's
a
so
lot of
bad.
people, and the fact that the Bucks board is just, and the Bucks board is being stingy right now because, well, we we fired we fired Bud after being impatient with him, and then we fired uh we fired Adrian Griffin after 31 games or 40 something games because after going 31 and 15 or whatever he was. And we have to pay him 3 more years. Now we just signed a doc for 3 years, $10 million a year, which my God, I think the Bucks are being a little hard headed about it because they're like, we can't just keep firing coaches. Well, then make goddamn right decision the first time. Maybe you
Right.
should have let Mike Budenholzer see out his last year and just see how it goes. At least he had a plan. At least he had structure. Adrian Griffin, you can't fault him. He was thrown into a very, very big pond, and he didn't know how to swim. I'm sure he's a great basketball mind, but that's his first head coaching job. You don't hire a guy who's never coached before with a team that's in a win now mode. The story of Giannis not wanting Nick Nurse pissed me off because I think Nick Nurse is a really good coach, even though Philadelphia is 1-5. But that's a different story. Philadelphia being 1-5 is a totally different story to the Bucks. I don't want to talk about that because I don't really give a fuck about Philly. But
Neither do
so they, so I think the Bucks are being Bucks board in the front office is being a little hard headed because they're like, we can't fire Doc. He'll just make us look wrong. Well, we already know you were wrong, so why don't you just get it over with and rewrite this ship? So it's tough. It's really tough. Hopefully they don't dig themselves too big of a hole to the point where they can't dig out of.
Hopefully that doesn't happen, but you never know. I got faith in
Yes,
him,
sir.
but it's looking very very shaky right now.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Brewers news. I think this is good
Some
to
good
go ahead and
news
highlight.
finally.
At least
Oh
we had
my
a shitty
God.
weekend of
Save the
Wisconsin
best for last, my
sports,
man.
but I think this is a big one. Brewers Vice President and General Manager Matt Arnold, Executive of the Year,
Perfect.
huge,
That's a great
huge,
account. Yeah.
huge accomplishment.
Yep.
Wow, can't even talk.
No, it's
Accomplishment
fine.
for the Brewers and for this organization. And I think this is just great because this right here, I think, for Brewer baseball is getting us to the next level of where we're consistently in the playoffs and consistently getting to go ahead and chase World Series. Talk to me about this, and there's obviously other guys that has got some awards as well.
Yes. So it just makes him look really well because before the season started, they signed Jackson Cheerio to a 8-year, $80 million deal, and he hadn't played a game yet. Well, that boy can play, and the fact that you got him locked up for 8 years of his prime, he's 20 years old. He's going to be 21 next year. He won't have to sign a new contract till he's 28, and by that time, he's probably going to have to go somewhere else because you're not going to be able to give him much money, or maybe that Yelich deal comes off and then you just give him the Yelich deal. That's huge. Matt Arnold replacing David Stearns, who's now with the Mets, making huge moves like that, bringing in Reese Hoskins, making some trades to keep the Brewers afloat when they had to use so much how many different pitchers this year. he deserves the award. And then the fact that they won, I can't even remember how many games they won. I kind of want to say they won 88 to 90 games is just absolutely impressive. And then it came down to one pitch that beat you. They should have been in the NLDS. I don't want to talk about it. But it's a huge accomplishment for him. I think that's the first one in franchise history first person in franchise history to win an NL Executive Award. He lost Craig Counsell and replaced him with Pat Murphy. And now Pat Murphy should be a person winning the National League Manager of the Year, which will make me so happy because Craig Counsell should have won it all those years. And now he goes to the Cubs. So now I call him Greg Counsell because he's not important enough for me to know his name. And he's going to win the National League. His predecessor on year one is going to win the National League Manager of the Year. It's going to make me really happy and make me laugh, unless they job Pat Murphy like they jobbed Craig Counsell so many times. Then I'll just be a little sad. And then to hit on more people winning awards, Bryce Terang winning second base Gold Glove for the National League, and Sal Frelick winning right fielder for the National League Gold Glove. First time in franchise history to Brewers, I'm pretty sure. Oh, maybe it's the second time. I think I heard him talking about that. I think it might be the second time the Brewers have won 2 Gold Gloves in a season. I think they did it back in the 80s once in that Yount era. I'm pretty sure it was 2. I don't know the names, but I remember it was 2 people back in the 80s who won it in the same year. But again, second time in franchise history, more than one player for the Brewers have won a Gold Glove. So that is absolutely great. Terang being 22 years old, 23, and then Sal Frelick being not much, about the same age. I think they came up together or through the organization as well. I think they're only a year or 2 apart. So great, just shows how young this Brewer team is and what the potential is for everybody in that organization. But we got a long way to go. And then to kind of break it down, more Brewers news. The Brewers have declined the player option to their all-star closer, Devin Williams, which puts him, he's still on the team. It just puts him to arbitration. So instead of him earning $10.5 million this year, he will be up to earning either $8 or $9 million a year. But I think that opens him up. I mean, the $10 million a year is one thing, but I think they did this to lower that price tag just a little bit. I think he'll be a trade contender, so the Brewers can get maybe more starting arms or relief arms because they do have pieces in the bullpen that make Devin Williams a little bit replaceable. Obviously, Devin Williams is a top 5 closer in the game with his changeup fastball combination, but he's also, as we hit on before, we don't know what his mental state of mind is going to be after that really, really tough loss to the Mets. And he's gonna get his money just like Josh Hader did. We did the same thing with Hader. But the Brewers have some arms in the bullpen that can replace him. Not be as productive or as dominant as he is, but it's getting to that point where he's outpricing himself to the Brewers. So, and the Brewers love just getting more young guys to come in and young talent through other minor league systems throughout other teams. So we'll see how that develops. I think they'll give Devin Williams maybe a season or 2, or they might just trade him in the winter meetings, which are going to come up in December or January. I think it's either early January or late December. But we'll see. We got the winter meetings, which is always an exciting time. Players getting moved. We'll see. But congratulations to all 3 of those guys. That's a huge accomplishment for the smallest market team in the MLB.
Absolutely. It's always going to be fun to go ahead and see them do what they did this past year, but get over that hump. Just got a lot of things. Do we have is Jim Henderson, did he re-sign as well with the team as the pitching coach or assistant pitching coach? Or was it Chris Hook?
That's Chris Hook. Chris Hook is so when Craig Counsell left, Chris Hook was one of the guys that was on Craig Counsell's radar that was like, hey, come with me. and that was a guy where the Brewers, he developed literally. The last pitching coach the Brewers had was, it was Scott Johnson, I think his name was. Did a really good job. He was on that 2018 staff where they went to the NLCS and lost in Game 7. I'm still really mad about that. I don't want to talk about that either. He went to the Reds because he got more money. He was getting $500,000 a year with the Brewers, and the Reds offered him $750,000. Obviously, in a position like that with coaching, you're going to take the extra $250K and run, just like you and I would. So then Chris Hook was the head of pitching development through the whole entire minor league system for the Brewers. They they promoted him to pitching coach because he developed all the guys, so he knows what they're all about. I think he does still a lot with developing. So that was a big name when they re-signed him, because he's part of that pitching guru system where all of a sudden guys are struggling. We've seen it before. The Brewers trade for him, and all of a sudden they get him into I forget what they call it, just that system that they have that just all of a sudden they make some tweaks to guys, and all of a sudden they're just dealing. So Chris Hook is part of that. He's big. I see him being the pitching coach basically until either Pat Murphy leaves, and if Ricky Weeks doesn't take over, then it'll be Chris Hook, or Ricky Weeks is going to take over after Pat Murphy's deal's done, if Murph is done with this 3-year deal, and then he'll stay on. I think he'll be a pitching coach for the rest of his career with the Brewers, or either a manager, because they like having Chris Hook around. And then other coaching news, Quentin Berry has left Milwaukee to go to Greg Council's club, the Chicago Cubs. So Quentin Berry, I'm going to have to figure out a new name for you because you're not important enough for me to remember you. But Quentin Berry was very instrumental in the base running. Bryce Durang gives a lot of his. Bryce Durang scored 50 stolen bases. He gave a lot of almost all of his credit to Quentin Berry, because Quentin Berry, when he played, was an elite base stealer. He wasn't really good at anything else. He made his living playing outfield defensively and pinch running to steal a bag because he was that good at it. So kind of a bigger loss, but you know what, Quentin Berry, I wish you the best in Chicago with all those fibs down there.
Well, just put Ricky Weeks on the first base. He'll teach those guys, so it's all
Absolutely. Good. Oh, yeah, you're right. What am I talking about here?
we'll put him out there. Yeah, I'd love to see his face more and more instead of having that OG in the dugout. But with that, everybody, you guys have a great week. Rest of your week. Have a great weekend. Jimmer's always a pleasure, brother.
Let's have a good week.